step back and grow slower. There's a lot of pressure on us here as Americans to grow as fast as we can. And a lot of us have personalities that are very conducive to that. But can you convince these people to grow slowly? Grow slowly, grow profitably, so you don't have to put yourself and your team and your business through these, crazy amounts of stress.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and turn them into cash-based multimillionaire entrepreneurs. Warning, if you're a doctor who listens to this podcast regularly, you will make millions of dollars. Do not listen to this podcast unless you want to be a successful clinic owner who helps thousands of patients achieve their health goals and adds more money than you can imagine to your bank account. You've been warned.
Welcome to the Super Clinic Project Podcast, where we take regular clinic owners and we turn them into super clinic owners. You have me, Jennifer Gligoric. I'm your host today, along with a banker, consultant, speaker, and author that helps business owners maximize their profits and overcome growth challenges to achieve financial freedom. He's seen business owners in his career push to be more profitable, but end up non-profitable and taking on debt countless times. And he's here today to teach us the 5 methods we can enhance our value as we grow our clinics. So let us welcome Manny Skevofilax to the show today. I'm sorry, I almost butchered that, but welcome, Manny. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Jennifer. Happy to be here.
I'm really happy. So you started out as a banker, and I remember reading that you said, many times you would see, customers that would come in, and then as you moved on to your career, and they would have a profitability, but then they would push for growth, like big growth, and they would start pushing, and instead of getting the growth, they would end up getting on debt instead and not being profitable. So basically messing up the kind of slow growth thing they did have. You want to talk about that, and then how what you're doing today to help them?
Yes. So in my experience, there's 2 ways that you grow a business. The first way is you go and you bring on outside investors to provide a pool of capital that you can draw from, and you're focused on your goals. You're not worried about the losses because you have that pool of capital, that pot of cash on the side to draw on. And then you move towards your goal and you hopefully meet it. Very difficult to attract outside investors to come to the company. The second way is bootstrapping, when you're doing it on your own with little access to capital, and you're trying to take some of the profits that you're making and use those to reinvest into the business. And we were dealing with mostly bootstrap companies because that's what's going on in America. Most of the companies, small businesses here that grow are all bootstrapped by their owners. And they get into unprofitable phases when they try to grow too fast, and they don't have the access to that capital, which led them to be taking on debt that they couldn't handle.
Yeah, that often happens. We deal with a lot of clinic owners like that. And a lot of times they end up just getting into this real hamster wheel of an unhealthy cycle where they're just like marketing, because they have no new patients in, and their current roster is barely able to sustain them. Then suddenly, now all these people are coming in and they have to try to get them to be into care, right? So then the marketing goes away, and then they have to fulfill on that, right? And then it just all starts over again, and they can never really get true growth, and they just become very, very burnt out. So can you talk to us a little bit about ways to get off of that hamster wheel that you've seen that have been very successful with the clinics and people that you've worked with?
Yeah, that's an excellent point that you make. I like the word unhealthy. In my experience, Jennifer, it depends on the person, depends on that entrepreneur. Are they willing to step back and grow slower? There's a lot of pressure on us here as Americans to grow as fast as we can. And a lot of us have personalities that are very conducive to that. But can you convince these people to grow slowly? Grow slowly, grow profitably, so you don't have to put yourself and your team and your business through these, crazy amounts of stress. What's the sense of having this money if you don't have the health to enjoy it, if you're burnt out all the time?
Yeah. And what are some tips for that? Because obviously in business, you have to be growing or innovating or you're dying. There's no real way just to plateau. with exactly what you're doing. There has to be some sort of growth mindset. What do you think is the difference between a healthy growth mindset and then the unhealthy growth mindset that's actually going to end up being risky for the business, in your opinion, from what you've seen?
In my opinion, Jennifer, it's more beneficial to go the slow and steady route because you're able to use your own profits to grow at the pace that works for you. And you're not subject to some kind of arbitrary goal. Like I have a medical company right now that's trying to open 18 locations in 18 months. And I'm trying to be polite and say, you know what? I know you've grown pretty rapidly, but this is a really extreme goal, extreme stretch goal. And they don't have the capital to do it. And it's already stressed the organization. So slow and steady wins the race is what I've seen in my career.
Why do you think? So let's talk about that like that would be a case study. Who made that decision and why do you think they made that decision? Why that number and why that time frame? I mean, we're just spitballing it because we don't know, right?
Okay.
Or maybe
so I don't know no, I mean, I feel like I have a flavor.
Uh-huh.
They believe that there's an opportunity. And they believe that they have to execute quickly before other competitors get into the market. That's their opinion. They obviously have far more knowledge about their, market and their business and their segment than I do. But I don't see it that way. Based on what they shared with me, it seems like an impossible dream. But they are convinced that they're going to do it and they're going after it.
Yeah. So what do you think would be more of the possible dream? 5, 8 within that time frame?
I
one?
think maybe 6, maybe every 3 months, every quarter you open one up so everyone can maintain their sanity. It's a lot of work, right?
Yeah, it is a lot of
It's
work.
not like putting a desk into an office. I mean, there's specialized equipment that needs to be purchased, installed. There's people that need to be trained, on how to use it. I mean, it's involved. It's an involved exercise onboarding a new office.
Yeah, I
but
think
they didn't want to.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
Oh, I think one of the things that you talked about is setting realistic goals, but also goals for employees. Like, because the idea is to improve efficiency and then to reduce overhead, right? You want to do that in your day-to-day operations. You always want to be looking at that. How can we be more efficient? And AI is really forcing some of the biggest players in the game right now to really ask that question daily. Because now you have AI, which in healthcare, legal, finance fields is becoming so powerful each day as it's learning and growing that, a lot of things we can just get a lot more output out. So, you're able to get more done with less resources because now AI is able to do it. However, because you can do that, you have to get out more. You have to become an expert in how to do that. And that takes your own growth and that takes your own processes to change, So it's really well interesting. Said. It's really interesting about that. So you talk about the 5 methods to enhance value as you grow your business. So let's say you're right. I don't want to stress things, but I do want to grow. I'm growth minded. And also too, I want to increase value. I don't want to be someone who, what I'm doing needs to have value. Like I'm bringing value to the world. That's why I decided to be an entrepreneur. So can you talk about some of those methods?
Sure. So the first one on the list that I've learned from teachers, mentors, and my experience over my career is, don't underprice your products because you don't have the confidence to ask for your value. That one is, that one always seems to find its way to the top of the list. And it takes time. I suffered from it as a consultant, and it takes a lot of time to get comfortable. To say, I am providing something that is very important and valuable in my service. I have a long history of doing it. And you have to get comfortable with it because if you underprice your product or service, you're leaving money on the table that you're never going to be able to get back.
Never.
No.
And the people will not value it. I actually have a case study of this. Now, it's interesting because the price of the package actually lowered. But what they were is they were tracking their data, right? So this is someone who really tracks data, and they also were tracking every objection they got and working on overcoming those objections and going, is the objection coming from me? Am I not showing enough value? Really doing their due diligence that you're supposed to do. And in the end, after looking at the data and everything that they uncovered, they went, this part of my package has no value for my clientele. And they're telling me this over and over again. So I'm going to take this part of my package out, and I'm only going to offer this part of the package. And it will lower my price. It's still going to be higher than I had ever charged before, but I feel that this is more in line. And do you know that they went from not closing a single package, only doing these monthly little memberships, to closing 100%. In fact, they're coming on my show. And it was in men's health because the part of the package they had to do with nutrition and lifestyle and different changes. And it was intensive what they were offering. It was valuable what they were offering. But every single person that they were talking to said, but I can do that on my own. Even though it was hard, even though they weren't doing it themselves, even though they weren't holding themselves accountable, it was not resonating with that market. Some markets it will. So they had to look at their own data and not anything else, not even what they logically knew to be true. They had to actually look at the numbers and let the numbers tell them. And do you know they grew 30 grand in 1 month. Now that isn't slow. Yeah, that's slow. That isn't slow and steady growth. But the way to get up there was very slow and steady. And the reasoning behind it was I'm here to grow, I'm here to make the decisions. But still, it was pricing correctly, but also listening to their market. And I agree that most people are very underpriced. They had been underpriced. And so they were used to selling the underpriced membership offer because they were much more comfortable with that. But in the end, they were best serving the people by giving them a package that answered all of the healthcare needs that really people wanted to have answered. So it's very interesting that you use that as number one. But I agree. Everybody needs to listen to Manny on this.
I don't know.
Not just me.
Somebody taught me this, Jennifer, but that's a fantastic story.
Well, it's true. It's the true ones that are happening right now that I think are most, they're actually coming on. They're going to be taping next week to talk about. And this just happened. This was June. So I don't know when this will come out. This might actually not come out till November, but we're talking June 2025. I hate to date an episode because a lot of the things we talk about are pretty universal, stand true for several years, but that's what we're at. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so that was number one. Don't underprice. What would be number two?
Here's a good one for you. So as you gain more confidence in selling your product or service, start building your confidence and then dedicate a portion of your marketing efforts to marketing to larger companies. And I'd like to provide an example, please. Yeah. So I have clients that are sending, $40,000, $50,000 proposals to companies that are doing, $1 million a year in revenue. There's a lot of the companies like that, and they're not getting accepted. And my clients are scratching their heads. And I said, hey, hold on a second. I said, let's look at this client that's doing $1 million in revenue. If they're netting 10%, that's $100,000. They're paying about, let's just say 30% in taxes. So there's 70 left over. They probably want to take some of that money home as a bonus. Let's say half of it. So they probably got about 35 grand left over, hopefully that they're letting sit in the company, so they can create their own growth capital. I said, and you're coming in here with a $50,000 proposal. That's why it's getting rejected. I said, why didn't you go to a $5 million a year company? Start talking to these larger companies that have larger budgets. And sure enough, a $50,000 proposal, which was impossible to sell to that $1 million client, even though the $1 million client certainly could benefit from the value. The $5 million clients were saying, who do I make the check payable to?
Yeah.
So the moral of the story, and that change helped a lot of my clients grow their top line revenue successfully. and profitably. And they built a sustainable business by going up market.
Yeah. And I would say for some of the clinics that are here, they're like, there's no up market because we're business to consumer. It is, if you think about this, in allowing people to afford what you have, right? So we know times are tough right now for a lot of people, but it only gets tougher if you don't have your health. So my clients are only getting people good health. And there are a variety of ways people can pay. There are different financings, and I'm not just talking about Care Credit. There's PayPal. There's HFA. Sorry, my HFA rep is probably going to be mad. There's Creedy. Creedy's another good example. You don't even have to have a credit score at all. They don't even check credit. So there are. Oh, yeah. HFA and Creedy both are different. Now, it's higher interest rates, but when you're talking about the difference between being in pain or out of pain, or dealing with something that is really limiting you in your life and you just can't seem to move forward from it, then that, they all have, if people pay it off and they're diligent with it, they can pay this off and then their life is different, right? So if you give people enough options, then if you follow the process in your funnel, then they will take that option. And I'm not saying use options that you yourself, like if you're like, that interest rate is just ridiculous, I don't agree with that. Okay, that's fine. You have to be aligned to whatever it is. But there are good companies that, you can work with and you can vet. But a lot of people just have nothing, and with all the lawsuits with Medicare and things like that are happening right now as we speak, there's a whole percentage of the population that has paid for something that absolutely is not going to get them well at all. It just won't be there for them. So we have to fight against that and provide them some other options. Yeah. So that's another one. So it is look for larger companies, but also I would say, expand what you can do for your offerings to go along with it for our audience. So what do you think would be number 3, or what do you know is number 3?
Number 3. So try to develop ways to increase the value of your existing products and services to your customers. So let me share a couple examples. Most customers know what they want, but they don't really always realize what they need. So what people want, Jennifer, is usually a commodity that's subject to price competition. For example, an airline seat, a refrigerator,
Botox. That is very much commoditized. I'm not kidding. We do a lot of med spas. It's all by the vial, but that's not what they want. Oh yeah. It's all how much per vial, how much per vial. And it is a race to the bottom. And so you have all of these very successful dermatologists and people who actually know how to do these injections without having half your face fall off. And they're literally having to treat a lifelong skill of knowing how to do this with these people who are selling it by a commodity. So there are other ways you can add value to it. And some of it is just who you are and how you present yourself. I mean, he's absolutely right. There's a lot of ways to add value.
That's interesting because I didn't know that. So it dovetails right in with this next one. When you introduce an unforeseen need, there isn't any price competition anymore because the offer is now one of uniqueness. So if you don't mind educating me, what could you offer on top of Botox that would make it unique? That would make it,
I would say right now, if you can, the idea is I would ask every single woman who came in, or man, because men get it too, every single client, what is your end goal? What is really upsetting you right now? What brought you in today and why here? And I would listen to what they're talking. Well, you're local. That would be one. Okay. That's one thing people would say. But, let's say I really want to feel freshened up because I'm getting married, or my son is getting married, or listen to the things that are telling you in your market. Different markets are different, right? In high urban areas, it could be, I just want to compete at my level. I work at a very big corporation. I know youth is at a premium. And I feel like when I look at myself, I don't feel like I'm putting my best face forward, right? Whatever. And I would listen to, but what specifically, I would probe on that. until you can get, like, I feel like these deep lines and wrinkles, whatever it is for that. And I would really make an effort to understand the actual outcomes. And if those outcomes in general are something you can get them with, I would create a package to get them that outcome. Like, I know that I can take 10 years off of you within 3 months, and you will probably look 2 years at least by the time you leave here on the first treatment, because this is what we're going to do. And then I would bundle that with red light. I would probably use a laser or something with that. And also, too, a lot of people have no idea how incredible the difference is between medical grade skincare products. I'm going to say there's a lot of people who don't understand the difference between a medical grade skincare product and what they can get off of TikTok or, all these miracle ones. And so I would offer freebies or low to try to get them onto it, because once they get on that, they'll realize the huge difference of it. So that's what if it was specifically a med spa, I would talk about all those different options, and I would create it. Okay. And I would say, what are the people asking you? If everybody's like, I want to look great in the boardroom, then I would have a, boardroom busting boot camp, take over the stage. And I would basically be outcomes based, the what's in it for them, in a way that is very different than selling. We have $12 vial Botox per vial, because that's what you see that's done.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It's very much been a race to the bottom. And the more they do that, the more, unfortunately, women get horribly harmed. There are, every single week in the news, there's some woman who you see who went in and half of her face gets completely numbed, or there's a terrible thing that can happen, especially with lip fillers, where they will accidentally fill an area that has some veins and capillaries, and it can start rotting. So it gets red, and then before you know it, your part of your face is rotting, and you were trying to just do something well. And so, you have to, the outcomes based and leaning into expertise is really important right now.
That is awesome. I'm certainly one of those that don't know the difference between medical grade and what you can get on TikTok. So that was perfect, And so I like to give a simple example. An airline ticket to Paris is one thing, but what is a curated private tour of the Louvre worth? A pool pump and a heater is one thing, but what if you could control them anywhere in the world from your smartphone? So I like to use these simple examples of that extra value add, and then let the client, what you just did, tailor it to their business. I think it's awesome.
That is awesome. It's absolutely awesome. So that's great advice. So that's the value of your product. So that was number 3. And now we have 4 and 5.
Sure. So number 4 would be try to create some new higher value products and services. So, in my experience, and I had to learn this the hard way, your existing customers are in the best position to tell you what their additional needs are and what else they'd like to buy from you. But they're probably only going to tell you what they need today. You're going to have to ask what they might need tomorrow. And that's where I had a hard time, because I wasn't asking what else they would want. How would they see the future? So I want to give you an interesting example for me. I did not know that clients were scared to talk to their banker. They're going to borrow all this money, and then they're scared to talk to the banker. So there was a need, and a valuable need, to be able to be taught to teach that client how to talk to the bank. Here's the things that you should say. Here are some things that you might want to say. And I ended up calling that service bank relations. And there it is. It was right under my nose. And I was a banker for 10 years. So by asking, they told me, because I had made an assumption. I'm like, gosh, to me, it was like pretty stupid. If you've got $2 million in debt, why would you be afraid to talk to your banker? It didn't make sense to me, because I made the mistake of assuming. So what is it that is right under your nose, right, as a clinician, that you could first of all, let's do it easy. Ask the client, what
Yeah.
else are they looking for? Besides that Botox, besides that medical grade products, what else is there that they would be looking for? Maybe not necessarily right now, but maybe tomorrow.
I think that's really interesting. And I love your example because, yeah, I can see why a lot of people are afraid. They don't want to get rejected. They're afraid that they will come off, they will either get talked into a product that's not really good for them or scammed or some reason, or there's not trust. But if they can know what they say and feel more confident, they can have a much better conversation. Yeah. That's interesting. But that's a great service. That's a great service for that. Okay. So number 5, our last one.
Yeah, number 5, I threw in there. What are the 6 secrets to successful price increases? This is something that we're all up against. Doesn't matter what business that you're in. So I just wrote down the 6 that I found worked over time. And again, this is my training, my experience, teachers and mentors. Number 1, don't beat around the bush about a price increase, right? Just, you got to be straightforward about it. Nobody likes to hear a song and dance. And then the second one is, if you still can't get comfortable talking to your clients, your existing clients is what I'm saying, about a price increase, then only raise prices for your new clients. The third one, and I found that this one works easily, insert an annual price increase sentence into your engagement letter or your contract. So it's right in there. And you'll notice that a lot of our professional services firms do that. The accounting firms that you're dealing with when you're a business owner, your lawyers, it's right in the contract. The fourth one is be keenly aware of the timing of your price increase. If you're having some quote unquote challenges with a client, that might not be the right time to go and increase a price.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And also to understand what's happening, like you're going to have to do there's going to be price increases and stuff like that when things happen in the world, right? But you do want to be a little savvy of what's going on and be sensitive a little bit, and even no matter when you do it, if you do it on the perfect day at the perfect time, there's always going to be someone who says, I can't believe you did this because my best friend's dog is at the vet in surgery. Like they'll be so upset and you'll be like, okay, don't worry about the people like that. But like at big events and stuff like that, you do want to be sensitive.
Never make the client feel like they're getting less from you with a price increase. This is one that I've learned in later years because I really wasn't paying much attention to it in the earlier years of my career. So for example, what are you getting? Comcast is in my area is a monopoly. I'm getting cable internet service from them and I need it and I don't have any alternative. So they just raise the price and it rubs me the wrong way. So I don't want to be rubbing my clients the wrong way. So don't make the client feel like they're getting a less value by raising the price. Put something else in there. Maybe.
And I can tell you some good ones for this. So like a good one that I've seen is we are working on this and this and this for Q3. We've updated our background software and we've also added 2 more, part-time technicians to come in on a Saturday. Whatever it is that you're already doing and you're going to be doing anyway because it's part of business, just let them know that so that they know that you're a dynamic company that's growing and this is part of operations. That'll make it go down a lot easier.
I think that's outstanding. Thank you for sharing that one.
Yeah.
That definitely takes pain away. And then the last one, right? The last one of the 6 secrets to successful price increases is, and this is my favorite, never sit down at the negotiating table unless you're willing to get up and walk away empty-handed. Boy, that was a tough one for me to learn. So why would I want to go into a situation where I'm reducing my value? It never works to reduce your value because then that's going to spread. They're going to tell their people that they're going to refer to you that you can get a deal. And getting a deal is not conducive to building a growing, profitable, sustainable business where you can take care of your employees, take care of your family, and take care of your community. So you have to be a little, bring some backbone to that negotiating table.
Yeah, they don't let them think that you're desperate for it. You're doing it because you're there to help them. They have a challenge. You're positioned to solve that challenge, and you feel confident to solve it. But if you're not the one, hey, that's okay too. Maybe on the upside, when you have that sort of attitude, people tend to go, okay, well, I don't feel pushed, and you're not pushing them. You're just asking them, to let you know if they have concerns, so you can answer them, so you guys can see if it's a fit. So guys,
very well said.
We have been here with Manny. Manny's going to tell you how to find him. Manny, let everybody know how they can find you.
Sure. On my website, which is Portal, PORTALCFO.com.
And so they just go there. And
go there.
And
I have a freebie there. I have put together a 1-page financial visibility checklist for free. And this is the exact document that I use when I first start working with clients to help them immediately figure out are there any margin leaks in this business, and are there any blind spots? And you can download a copy there.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, guys, we have been here with Manny Skevofilax, and he is our outsourced CFO, and all of his information is going to be on superclinicproject.com. If you didn't get that, you can just go to our normal website, click on our school. We'll have everything there for you, and links to his freebies and everything else. So in this episode, we've learned the 5 methods to enhance your value and grow your business, as well as 6 ways on how to, when you want to increase your prices, and what to do for that. So we've learned a whole lot. Thank you so much, Manny, for being here. And everybody follow, and share, and be sure to give us that 5-star review. It's how we get top quality people like Manny on the show, giving us such incredible value so we can be super clinic owners. Everybody have a great week. And thank you again, Manny.
Thank you, Jennifer.
You've been listening to the Super Clinic Project podcast. If you like what you hear, subscribe and stay tuned for further episodes of the Super Clinic Project podcast.